I'm Shayla and welcome back to my channel. It is the first full week of April, so of course I had to come on here and do my monthly recap. It is the March Monthly Matcha. I actually am not recording this until it's like after 9 p.m. So I am not going to be having a matcha. I do not need caffeine that late at night. So I made a little mocktail. It is literally just zero sugar ginger beer with some lime juice. So this is what I will be sipping on while I am spilling the tea for the month of March. The first area that we are going to dive into is writing. The last I left you for the January and February wrap up, I had just finished draft 2 and I was working my way into draft 3. In the month of March, I was able to get through my past revisions and finished up draft 3. And I finished at 84,380 words. I ended draft 2 with 82,929. So we're looking at roughly 1,500 words added between drafts. In this round, I mostly was just looking for things that I may have needed to add at the beginning of the story to kind of match up with the end. If there was any like big grammatical issues that I may have missed before, I went and did some of those. And when I finished draft 3, I sent it off to 3 beta readers. I asked the beta readers to just kind of look for any plot holes, anywhere where the prose may have been a little bit too wordy, because I have been known to do that. And then when I sent the first 4,000 or 5,000 to my reading group, I know they had said at the beginning of the book it was a little confusing which house the main character was at. I don't think I've ever shared with you guys what my story is about. Let me do that. So the story is going by its acronym, SDLH, and one day I will share the full title, but that's what we're gonna say for now. If we want to make it easier, we can call it Project Marbles. Maybe that's what we'll go by now, is Project Marbles. I think that sounds a little bit better, actually. Project Marbles is about a woman in her early 30s. She has gone through like a devastating breakup. She had to quit her job and she has gone to be like a full-time writer. Her house where she was going to move in with her boyfriend, it fell through because of them breaking up. So she doesn't really have anywhere to go and she's just kind of lost. She doesn't know what to do. So her godmother allows her to stay in her cabin that is in a secluded part of the woods in Ellijay, Georgia, like up in the mountains. And so she is like gonna let her stay there so she can kind of get her shit together. She needs to start working on her sophomore novel. Her agent and editor are waiting for her draft, or like a pitch basically, and she doesn't have anything yet because her life is falling apart. So she goes up to the cabin and when she gets there, she's having a difficult time getting into the house. The key code that her aunt sent over in the text is not working on the lockbox. So she goes across the street to a house that she's assuming is a new build because she and her mother used to go up to the cabin with her godmother when she was little, and she doesn't remember that house being there, but now there's a house there and she goes over to try to get help to get in the house because she is not getting good service and she can't get in touch with her godmother through text. So she's hoping they have a phone, or if they like might know her Aunt Kara and know where she could have a spare key hidden. So that's why she goes over to the other house. So that is the beginning of the story, and the gist of it is Willa, the main character, she is in the cabin. She's finally settled in. Once she gets in there, there's a whole bit with that, but once she gets in the house, she gets settled with a bottle of wine. She's trying to work on her book, and then there is a knock on the door and a stranger asking for Salem. So that is kind of like the beginning of the story when we start to get into the scary action of my psychological horror. So I asked my betas to let me know if there was any plot holes, and my writing group had said, like I had mentioned earlier, that they were a little confused about which house they were at, so I need to work on clarifying that. So that was a big thing that I did in draft 3, and one of the women in my writing group also is beta reading, so I asked her specifically to let me know if she was still a little confused or if the clarification was there in this draft. And then I also asked if the book was scary and if the message came across when they got to the end. And the whole thing about it being scary, I really wanted to know because I spent so much time with these characters. The story was no longer scary to me. And if it's not, I mean, the biggest thing is I want the message to come across, of course, but it's a horror, and I can't in good conscience call it a horror if it does not scare you even a little bit. I sent those questions off to my beta readers in hopes that I was going to get some good feedback. So in the first half of March is when I was finishing up draft 3 and sent it off to my beta readers. In the second half of the month, I really took a break. I didn't have that much time, or I guess I had the time. I just didn't give myself that much time between drafts 2 and 3. So I was going to take just a week-long break, and then I decided to just take the entire 2 weeks off because I think I gave them like 2 to 3 weeks to finish reading. And so I decided to take the 2 weeks off and not look at the story at all. So that's really the only update I have for you until we get into next month's Monthly Matcha, because I did meet with my writing group yesterday, actually. Yesterday from filming this video. And so I do have a little bit of feedback, but it's technically April, so I will save it for next month's Monthly Matcha. So with that being said, I am going to move on to reading. March was good to me with reading. I still am not reading as quickly as I typically do, but I am starting to pick up from where I was at the beginning of the year. I finished 2 books in March, and they're pretty thick books, so I was happy with that. The first book I finished was Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. I love this cover, and I got the pretty dragon sprayed edges. It was a slow start, that's for sure. It took me a while to get into, and that's when I was having my reading slump. But we managed to get through, and once I got into it, it did not take me long to finish it at all. So, I mean, there's just so much to talk about with this. I am not a fantasy theory girly. I can drum up some theories pretty quickly when I'm reading thrillers. I actually have done a thriller theory series before on a different social media platform, and I just can't do it with fantasy, at least not yet. I don't think I'm as well versed in fantasy yet as I am in thrillers. So maybe if I keep reading it, I'll get better at it. I read Harry Potter a while ago, and I will say, like, as a 30-something adult, the first fantasy book I read was Fourth Wing. And then I tore into the ACOTAR series. I finished that up all last year pretty quickly. And then, of course, Iron Flame and now Onyx Storm. So I'm a little baby fantasy reader. So I can't quite piece together all of these things while I'm reading. I will catch on to some stuff and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But I did not really get into the theories for this until after I finished reading it and I started watching other creators' videos about what they thought was really going on. And there are some interesting theories. And I will say this is going to be a spoiler. So if you have not finished this yet, then I would skip ahead like 10 seconds or something, 15 maybe. But the theory that I just got this past week that I am really getting on board with is that Violet is actually a mind walker and not just a dream walker. And to me, that makes way more sense with a lot of different things that have happened. And also, I think the new brother is Bodhi. That is the train that I'm on right now. And yeah, if you haven't read this book or don't know anything about it, it is about a war college, Bezgaev, and there's different quadrants. Our main characters are the riders, and they ride dragons. That's like the very bare bones gist that I can give to you about what the Empyrean series is about. It is a romantasy. So there is a romance in here that was like an enemies to lovers type deal. So very good. If you want to hear a little bit more of my thoughts, more in depth than what I'm giving here, I will do my monthly book report on my Substack, and that is for paid subscribers. But if you just want like a little, like even shorter than Cliff's Notes of what I thought and like who I would recommend this book to and the next one we're about to talk about, I would read my book summary, and that is for everyone on Substack, not just paid. So that is Onyx Storm. The second book I read in March was Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. I don't know. I'm trying not to get a glare. There we go. A glare on it. I have to kind of hold it sideways. It is a lava lamp and some sort of witchy hand. It's cute. I like it. And also, this is one of the books that I got when I went on my trip to Greenville. If you haven't watched that video, it is the one that is posted right before this one. And I went to Greenville to actually go to Grady Hendrix book signing, but then I just spent the whole day there. I got a little bit of writing done and tried lots of nice like cocktails and food and stuff. So it was a good trip, and you can see the vlog. I'll link it below. But yes, so that is what was written in my book with a little stamp. Everybody got their own little specialized note in the book, and the signing was so large that they limited the number of books you could get signed. And so like if you wanted a picture and stuff. So I brought How to Sell a Haunted House, which is my favorite book by him, and I decided I wanted to have that book signed, like with his signature. So I did that instead of this, but I do have that little personalized, or I guess it's not personalized because he pre-signed them, but I got this like random note that only I have in my book, which is cool. So Witchcraft for Wayward Girls is about a young girl, I think she's 15, Neva. She is pregnant, and I think it was, I want to say this was set in the 60s. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if I can, here we go, right here. The sweltering summer of 1970. So I was kind of close. It's set during a time where homes for unwed mothers could go and have their babies in secret, essentially. So Neva gets forced to go there by her parents, and obviously she meets a lot of other pregnant girls there, and they are all young. They're all there under different circumstances, but the same. And they range in age. I think the youngest girl that was mentioned here, I want to say she's 12. And that one was a whole thing. I think the oldest girl there, I think it was alluded, like she was like 17. That home is owned by a woman whose father was a doctor and had passed away, and so she had like inherited the house, and she gives the girls names to use while they're there, and she calls them like her garden. And so they all have plant or flower based names, and so Neva becomes Fern. I really liked how Grady Hendrix did that, because once she said you'll be Fern, literally from that second on, he called her Fern throughout the book until you get to the very, very end, and then she's Neva again. Once Fern is as settled into the house as she can be, she is, trying to get along with the other girls, and they are basically like, hey, you're here to have this baby and then move on, and life goes back to how it was before. And there's the adults that run it, so there's the woman that owns it, then they have like a social worker on site, another like housekeeper lady that helps out, the chef, her sister, and the doctor and the nurse. So they have like this handful of adults who think they know what these girls need, and like their word is the word, like the final word. So Fern comes across a book on witchcraft, and then from there hijinks ensue. It is a horror novel, but I wouldn't really say it's that scary. I don't know. Grady Hendrix writes very campy, and campy horrors can be scary. This one, however, was not. There was a couple times that I was a little like, I don't know, on edge, but I wasn't scared, if that makes sense. But that's okay, because the book was still marvelous, and I cried at the end, not like from the book. Like I could feel myself getting there, but then I read the acknowledgments at the end and I lost it. So anyways, this was a great read. I would definitely pick it up if you like books about witches, and if you've read any other Grady Hendrix books, then you are really gonna enjoy this one. And finally, we are gonna move on to life updates. I am trying to think about what happened in March. My day job is, I'm trying to be vague. I don't want to give away exactly where I work, but I will say I do a lot of things, but the main piece of my job is like communications and marketing and recruiting. And there was a big project that I was assigned, probably November, December. It was brought to my attention that I would be heading the project, and it was like a company wide, like every division was in charge of like hosting an event for the overarching project. I know I'm being really vague here. Anyway, the day came, it was successful. It was a fundraising event, and I was exhausted, and I don't think I realized how like stressed I was about it until it was over. Like the week leading up, I was having issues with my neck that I've had before. And like I've gone to the doctor. It was kind of related to last year when I was getting, you know, testing for my arms and stuff too, where I ended up needing surgery. Anyways, anytime that I'm super stressed out now, I have realized that that's when my neck just gets like, I don't know how to describe it, but it just hurts. It just hurts terribly. And I have like a special neck like pillow thing that I have to lay on. Anyways, after that was over, all the tension in my neck just disappeared. So that was probably like the biggest thing I was focusing on. And then a little bit more personally, there was something in my life that I thought was going to go one way and was really excited about, and it ended up going another way. And so I was a little sad, but you know, life moves on, and we're here now with a mocktail talking about books and spilling the tea with you. So it's all good, right? I also got to go to brunch with one of my friends that I hadn't seen in a really long time. And I went to a wine boutique and dinner with another one of my friends. And my niece turned 9 years old. My little baby girl is the niece that made me an auntie. So I'm actually going to see her in a couple weeks to take her shopping for her birthday. I am definitely excited about that. Other than those like few things, March was pretty chill. I was at home for the most part, and yeah, I was definitely taking my break from the manuscript. And once that project at work was through, and I just like chilled, and I needed it desperately. That wraps it up. We've gone over writing, reading, and life. And that is the March monthly matcha, even though we are matcha-less this time. I am so happy that you're here. If you've stuck around this long, then you can put a little matcha emoji or maybe even a wine glass. And I will catch you guys for monthly matcha in a few weeks. I am planning a video to be dropped next week about a bookshop slash like coffee bar. I don't think they have alcohol, so maybe I wouldn't call it a bar, but it's like a sit down coffee shop. That is a great place for writers to go and book lovers alike, but I will be doing a little short miniature vlog on that trip. And then I'm going to be doing my first writing vlog. So look out for that in a couple weeks. Anyways, thanks again, and I will catch you next time. Bye.